Hey, I want to welcome you guys to another episode of the AWM NFL Podcast. My name is Riccardo Stewart. I have the privilege of being your host, and I'm joined as always by my friends and co-workers at AWM. We got Jeff Locke, Sam Acho, and Zach Miller. And today, guys, we're going to start the conversation of broke. All right. So about a little over a decade ago, October 2012, ESPN came out with the 30 for 30. What if I told you ... And it was all about athletes being broke. And you saw people on there like Bernie Kosar and so forth, and just talking about the challenges that major professional athletes have in terms of managing money. And what happens with Jeff and Sam and Zach and myself is people find out what it is that we do in terms of a career, and their response is, oh my gosh, that's so good that you're doing that for them because they need it. Because there's this perception out there that all the athletes are going broke and we're like the saviors coming in to save them. And I just want to step back and go, to our listeners, we are not saviors. We're financial advisors and planners and so forth. We're not saviors. Not every athlete goes broke, but that is a perception. So there is some validity perhaps. And so Jeff, I'm going to start with you and going, is the perception reality?
That's a good question. And I guess to answer directly, no, perception is not reality. The person that created that broke series had to come out a couple months later and say, hey, the data I used for the broke series is literally just surveys from agents and people in the NFL, right? Not actual hard data on anyone actually going bankrupt or broke, but the 78% number stuck in everyone's head. And everyone's takeaway was 78% of guys go broke. That's what it got shortened down to. And it's just completely not true for NFL or NBA players. But what is true is there are distinct reasons why people get into financial distress, especially as a pro athlete. So that is the huge takeaway from that documentary. And that article was like, here are the 5 or 6 things to really look out for when you're a pro to make sure you aren't the next example of someone that did go broke or lose all their money.
I can always count on the professor to give me the knowledge that I need. Sam, from an experience standpoint, when you were coming out of the University of Texas and you were getting drafted into the NFL, was there a part in your mind or was there a piece of your mind that thought like, man, I hope I don't become like these other guys in theory?
I didn't know those stats, to be totally honest. I didn't know those stats until 2012, my second year in the NFL after getting drafted in 2011 and being at the NFL Players Association annual meeting. I had just been voted by my teammates as a team player representative for the Arizona Cardinals. And I heard some of those numbers. And we did hear that, okay, it's maybe not be 100% accurate, but what we heard is that it wasn't just going broke, but 78% of players within 2 years of retirement are either divorced, depressed, or bankrupt. And though that we heard that those stats may not be 100% accurate, something still remained that, man, this is not a good business model. And so if 8 out of every 10 of your players end up in that situation, it's not a good business model. And so for me, it wasn't necessarily trying to avoid it. First, I didn't even know that was a reality. And then once I got into the NFL and started hearing some of the statistics and seeing some of the players, I realized, oh, wow, there are definite easy pathways towards being in financial distress.
So if you look at some of the stats, like these are like legit stats, it's something about around 4% of Americans have a net worth of $1 million. And then you go and it's 0.5%. 0.5% are 5 million. And then you get to that 25 or more, and we're talking 0.05. Okay, I throw that stats out to say, not very many people are millionaires. And so when you watch this show, it's many of us who've never been in that position, who've never had to manage that much money. And we make these like indictments and judgments upon people without even knowing what it's like to be in their shoes. So Zach, as one who's made millions and who's been able to sustain millions, like I do want you to talk about, one, from an empathy standpoint, how easy is it to actually go broke when you've made millions?
I think it's really hard to stay wealthy. It's something people don't really realize, but when you have that much money, you also want to spend a lot. You want to be able to use that money on the fun, cool things. So as an NFL player, nothing is as real as that drop in your income once you're out of the league. Like, you have millions of dollars every single year coming in. the year that you are done, you drop into like the lowest tax bracket. Unless you've been saving right, unless you've been doing the right things and hitting your savings rate as a player to pay that future self. I know I noticed it personally, like go from making $7-8 million a year, first year out of the league, it's a few $100,000 in from my investments. So huge drop in income. And unless you prepare for that, like it can really trip you up. And you think about like you're spending 500, 600, 700 grand a year, giving family maybe 100 grand a year. That adds up to where you do that for 3, 4, 5 years, you might be completely out of money if you didn't save when you were a player and put that money to work the right way. So having a plan for that, we always say pay your future self. And as a retired guy with millions in my account, I thank my younger self for paying me, for setting me up for what I can have today. And not everyone does that. I think about the stats of like generational wealth. If you have 10 people and they have enough money, say they have $30 million, 7 out of that 10 people will not pass money on to their kids. And then you think about their grandkids, only 9 people won't have that money to pass on. So only 1 in 10 will actually pass money on to their grandkids from that 30 million of wealth. So that just puts the numbers in perspective of how hard it truly is to sustain wealth.
We use the phrase sometimes of sudden wealth. I remember the first time I heard that, I'm like, man, what a great phrase, sudden wealth. 20-year-old gets drafted, a 21-year-old gets drafted, a 19-year-old kid gets drafted, and suddenly, whack, wealth. Even in the age of NIL, there's some good money that's going there, but we're talking wealth. And so, Jeff, one, like, what are the effects of that? What do we mean by sudden wealth? And what are the positive and maybe negative effects that could have on a person or a family?
Yeah, sudden wealth, it's really simple. You described it, Riccardo. It's just earning a lot of money over a short period of time. And usually it's more money than you or your family is used to, right? It's sudden. It's not how you've been living. And the positive of this is if you plan for it and if you invest it properly, you can set yourself up for generations, your family for generations. But like Zach said, like only 1 in 10 actually pass it down to their grandkids. The negatives of sudden wealth, there can be a lot of negatives. One, just personally, you could have guilt. You could have anxiety about what you have. Like, why do I deserve this? Could be something when some of your family might not have what you have. There could be some isolation. We've actually, I experienced this a little bit. I know a lot of guys that have experienced this where like you feel so different from the people that you grew up with that you actually kind of start isolating and pulling away from people. And then as Zach talked about, there's sometimes this intense pressure to take care of people. Some people in your family you're going to want to take care of, but there's pressure to take care of people outside of your immediate family. And then there's spending problems that happen to a lot of people that have this sudden wealth because they think it's going to keep coming in year after year after year when it most likely is not.
Sam, I'm gonna ask you the last question and just kind of give a little wisdom here as we close. What are some of the warning signs that you see that maybe you've seen in teammates and maybe you've seen in friends that you say, hey, these are some of the warning signs that I would say, hey, check yourself?
The first one is the idea of feeling the pressure of having to take care of everyone when the bill comes. We would do defense dinners on Thursday, and that would be usually the entire defense, 30 or so guys on the team all get together. And oftentimes you might rotate the bill or some guys may split the bill. But outside of, let's say you say, oh, I'm going to get it. I just signed this new contract. I'll take care of it every single time. Or even you're going with family and friends and it's always, all right, you're going to go to wherever the restaurant is and you're taking care of the bill every single time. For me, that just, it's hard because all these people are looking at you and saying, well, you made it and I deserve it and I'm around you. So let's make it happen. But they're not the ones seeing all the taxes that are coming out. They're not the ones that are seeing, hey, the check actually isn't what you think it is. They're not the ones that are seeing whether it's Social Security or things being taken out. And then they're also not the ones, at least up until a couple of years ago, when you played in the NFL, the checks only came during the season. So when the season ended, those checks didn't come. Now that's changed a little bit, right? Through the NFLPA, we've expanded some of the pay period. But the biggest sign that I see is you feeling the pressure of, I've got to take care of everyone when it comes to the bill, or I've got to buy the newest car or the newest this or the newest that to keep up with the Joneses.
Yeah. So let me just go back to where we started. People asking us and saying, hey, what do you do? And when we tell them, they go, oh, that's really good. Here's the reality. We don't save people. We serve people. And so to the NFL players that are listening to this, you are the owner of your wealth. And it comes down to you to choose the team appropriately to help you not just go broke. Okay, that is not even a bare minimum. We're setting our eyes on something completely different. And it is, how do you create and sustain multi-generational wealth? And there's this phrase that many of us haven't heard of called shirt sleeve to shirt sleeve. In our next episode, we're going to talk about what does it look like to have the money in the first generation and to still have it in the third generation. If there's anything you heard today from any of us, if you have any questions or any thoughts, you want to reach out to us, please text us. Our number is 602-989-5022.